Okay, this is the Unit 3 level review. Remember that it's due the day of the test, and it's worth 5 bonus points. Okay, so on the first one, you're just kind of looking at the attributes of the graph. So the first one they want you to do is they want you to find the vertex. And so remember, the vertex is your highest or your lowest point. If it is your lowest point, remember that's a minimum at y equals. And if it's a maximum, it's going to open downward. And again, it's a max at y equals. Okay, so on the vertex, there's my vertex, and it's located at 3, 2. This one is going to have a maximum because it opens downward. And that's at f of x equals. And then the highest part that I went to is the 2 right there, which you'll notice is the same number right here. Okay, then you also have the axis of symmetry. So that's going to be right here, cuts it in half. Okay, and that's x equals 3. Now, every single one of these, the domain is going to be negative infinity to infinity. Every single one, because it's always, as it's going down or up, it's going to be going to the left and the right also. All right, the range on this one, the lowest it goes is negative infinity, and then it goes all the way up to that maximum value, which was 2, and then you're going to put a bracket there. Okay, for the equation, you have f of x equals, excuse me, so you have f of x equals, now the equation will start with a negative because it's opening downward, and then also if I go down 1 over 1, it's only going to have a 1. So it's neither a stretch or a compression, so I'm not even going to put the 1. Okay, now, on the inside is which way it moved. So the first place it moved is it moved right, and remember the inside lies, so x minus 3 squared, and then the vertex moved up, so plus 2. So the main thing you have to remember is the parent function starts right here, and so when you're talking about writing the equation, you're seeing where did the new vertex move. Okay, on the next one. So the next one here, they're talking about max or min value. Now, I know this will have a max because of that negative right there. So what that then means is that it's going to open down. It's going to have a max value. Okay, well, what is the max value? Well, this is how it moves up or down. So the max value is going to be negative 11. All right, your axis of symmetry, that's going to be that 10 there, but remember the inside lies, so x equals negative 10. Because of that max, it's going to open down. And again, how did you know? Because of the negative. All right, on the next one, it says, what is the vertex and axis of symmetry for the graph? Well, there's two different ways to do this. You could use x equals negative b divided by 2a. So this would be your b value, and 1 would be your a value. So if I did it this way, I would end up getting negative 10 over 2 times 1 equals negative 10 over 2, which equals negative 5. Then what I would do is I would take that negative 5 and substitute it back in. So I would have negative 5 squared plus 10 times negative 5 minus 2. And so here you have 25 minus 50 minus 12. And that gives me negative 25 minus 12, which is negative 37. Okay, so my vertex here is negative 5, negative 37. Now, you can also use the calculator. So if I use the calculator, I'm going to go to y equals. See if I can get that someplace where y'all can see it. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to type that equation in. So x squared plus 10x minus 12. If I go to my table, I'm going to look for that vertex. So I'm looking for a repeating pattern. And sometimes you just kind of have to scroll through it until you find it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so right here is my vertex. And the reason I know it's my vertex is because it's surrounded by the same numbers. So if you kind of look at that, you see how it's surrounded by those negative 36s? So the vertex is -5, -37. Okay, on the next one, they want you to use completing the square to convert the equation. So if you're going to do that, you're going to have to create a new c value. So I'm actually going to get rid of that c value. So x squared minus 6x blank, so I got rid of it, but I can't totally forget it, so I'm going to put +3 on the outside and then another minus. Alright, so the way to create that is you do b divided by 2 squared. Oh, this is my b value. So -6 divided by 2 is -3. And then if I square it, I get, -9. So +9, but then I also have to balance it, so -9. Now, they want you to write this in vertex form. Okay, so if I write this in vertex form, whatever stays in the parenthesis, whatever's in the parenthesis stays in the parenthesis. So here I'm going to have x minus 3 squared, and then if I combine that, I get -6. Now, the other way to do it is, again, if you just go to your calculator, and if I type in x squared minus 6x plus 3, let me delete all that. If I go to my calculator and find my vertex, and there it is. You'll see it's surrounded by the -5s. So my vertex here is actually 3, -6. So what I could have done is I could have just put it in here. So there's my 3, there's my -6, because again, that's what the vertex was, 3, -6. Okay, and then also I would have known what my a value was, because my a value is 1. So I could have put the 1 there. So f of x equals x minus 3 squared minus 6. Alright, on number 5, it says a cannonball is launched upward at 64 feet per second from a platform. Okay, so you've got a cannonball. Pew! Okay, so there's my little drawing. There goes the cannonball. And it says, what is the cannonball's maximum height? Okay, so the cannonball's maximum height is going to be the highest point, which is also the vertex. So when I'm talking about the maximum height, I'm really just looking for the vertex. So I'm going to go to my y equals, and I'm going to see if I can get a nice equation. So -16 x squared, let me just erase all that. Alright, -16 x squared plus 64x plus 80. And since I know it's the vertex, I'm going to go to my table, and I'm going to see if I can get lucky, and hopefully it's a really good number. Oh, I did. There it is. I got lucky. Alright, so you'll notice here, see how that says 2, 144? And I know that's the right one because see how it's surrounded by 128? So what this means is at 2 seconds, it reaches its maximum height of 144. So again, just remember that max height is part of the vertex. And which part is it? It's going to be the y part of the vertex, the y part. Alright, on this one here it says write the vertex form of the parabola whose vertex is 2, -2 and goes to the point 4, 6. So because they're giving me the vertex, they're giving me the h and the k. And because they're giving me a point, they're giving me an x and a y. So I'm going to write out the vertex form. And then I'm going to notice that they give me a y and an x and a y right there. Okay. They also give me an h and a k right here. So now I just need to start substituting everything in. So I'm going to put 6 equals a. Instead of the x, I'm going to put 4. Instead of the h, I'm going to put 2. So -2 because it's a positive. And then -2 here. Alright, so if I keep on working that out, I get 6 equals a. And actually, yeah, 6. I'm gonna do this a different way. I'm gonna get rid of this a for a second. All right, so let me just start here in the parentheses. Okay, so what is 4 minus 2? It's 2. And then if I square it, I get 4. So what this really ends up being is 4a and then minus 2. All right, so now I'm going to add 2. Okay, that gives me 8. So 8 equals 4a, divide by 4, divide by 4, a equals 2. So I did that whole process to find the a. Now that I know what the a is, I can now substitute in my values. So I have to substitute in a value here, here, and here. Okay, so my final equation on this one is going to be y equals 2 x minus 2 squared minus 2. Okay, on number 7, it says create an equation for each of the following that would have these characteristics. Okay, well this one says it has a maximum vertex and an axis of symmetry at x equals negative 2. So if it's a maximum, I know the equation has to start with a negative, okay? Now, I also know the axis of symmetry is negative 2, which means it moved left 2. So since it moved left 2, I'm going to put x plus 2 squared, okay? And then really for the last part, I could just pick any point I want. So I'm just going to put like plus 1 or something. Now this one has a minimum at 3, 5. So what they're actually telling me here is this is the x part of the vertex and that's the y part of the vertex. Now I also know since it's a minimum, it's going to open upward. So the equation is going to start off with a positive. So for this, I'm going to have y equals, this moved right, so x minus 3 squared and then plus 5. Alright, on this one, again, they give me the vertex, they're giving me that h and the k, and they tell me it opens downward. So since it opens downward, I know it's going to have a max. So y equals x minus 3 squared minus 4. Now, I did forget the negative because the downward, so make sure you put the negative in front right there. Okay, on the back. So this one here, it looks like it's actually going to be a quadratic regression. Now, notice they gave me 3 points. So it says a wolf made a leap. So there it's leaping. Leap, 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 leap. A wolf made a leap, and the following data points were collected with the x values representing time in seconds and the y values representing distance in seconds. Write a quadratic equation to model the path of the wolf's jump round to the nearest hundredth when necessary. How high do you estimate the wolf was after half a second from the beginning of the jump? Okay, so what I need to do is I'm going to make a table of values. I think that's 0.4 actually, and then 0.7, 0.2. Alright, so I'm going to come into my calculator. I'm going to do stat, edit, and then I'm going to type all that in. So 0, 0.4, 0.7, and then here I'm going to have 0, 6, and then 0.2. Alright, and I'm going to do a quadratic regression. Remember, this whole test is about quadratics. So quadratic regression, and I get that. So I got to round to the hundredths. So y equals negative 49.05 x squared plus 34.62 x and then plus 0. Now, this last number is actually going to be your y-intercept, and that makes sense because it started from the ground. Alright, now it says at half a second, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that equation and I'm just going to start typing it in. I'm going to type in, so this half is my x, so I'm going to do negative 49.05, and then I'm going to do 0.5 squared, because again, that 0.5 is my x, plus 34.62, and another 0.5, and then let me see what I get. And there it is. So how high do you estimate the wolf was at half a second? Well, at half a second, the wolf was about 5.05 feet above the ground, which makes sense because there's the 0.4 right here. So 0.5 would make it be a little bit lower there. So that's perfect. All right, on this one here, it says use the following data to find a quadratic regression model for the data. Round to the nearest hundredth when necessary. What does the model predict for the y-intercept? Okay, so again, all I'm doing on this one is I'm going through, I'm just inputting data, so give me a moment. Hopefully I don't input it wrong, which I think I just made a little mistake there. Okay. Okay. And then we come back over here. So if my numbers are a little off when I do it, you'll still get the general idea, but you need to try to be as accurate as possible. A good idea is always kind of go back and just double check the data that you have in there just to make sure there's not any mistakes. So I had 1 through 7, which is what the graph has, and then I'm just double checking it. Yeah, I think it looks okay. All right, so now I'm going to do stat calc quad reg, and whew, there's my long equation. All right, so now I'm going to round it to the hundredths. So y equals 10.89 x squared minus 27.97x plus 55.87. All right, now this last number, like this whole time, this last number is your y-intercept. So 55.87. Now, let me just kind of, so for instance, like on these equations here, like this one, here's your y-intercept. That graph will cross there as the y-axis. There's your y-intercept. Okay, so if you go through this, that last number in standard form is your y-intercept. Okay, now this one says a parabola has an axis symmetry at x equals 4 and goes through the points 2, 1, and 5, 7 and opens downward. All right, well, I wish there was a little graph here, but guess what? I can make one. Now I know this is 4, so 3, 2, 1, -1, -2, -3. Okay, so they tell my axis symmetry is x equals 4. Okay, so here's x equals 4. All right. There's a point at 2, 1. So 2, 1. Okay, well this is 2 away from the axis symmetry, which means it would have to be 2 away on the other side also. So I need 3 points to do this. Now, when I first did this, they gave me 2 points. So the reason that I plotted this point here was to reflect it over that line of symmetry to get the new point. So 6, 2. All right, so I'm going to go back to stat edit. I'm going to clear all this out. Okay, and then I'm going to put in my new information. So 2, 5, 6, 1, 7, 2. So stat calc quad reg. And this is what I have. All right, so I have y equals -1.75 x squared plus 14.25 x minus 20.5. And remember that last number is your y-intercept. All right, now to find the vertex, I need to put that in the equation. Hopefully it comes out nice and we can see it on the table. I'm kind of having my doubts though. So -1.75 x squared plus 14.25 x minus 20.5. All right, now if I go to my table, I hope it comes out nice, but I'm not seeing it. It's going to be ugly. All right, so there's another way I can do this. What I can do is I can go to zoom, and I'm going to go to zoom fit, so that's 0, zoom 0, right there. Okay, and this will give me a better picture of it. Okay, so I know this top part is the vertex, right there. All right, so what I know is then that it has a maximum value. So I can do this thing called second trace. I can go down to maximum value. Now see how it says left bound right here? So I'm going to go to the left of my vertex. So my vertex was there, so go to the left of it and hit enter. Now it says right bound, so go all the way to the right. Just somewhere on the right, you know, it has to be on the other side of that vertex. Remember, that vertex is that yellow dot, so just make sure it's on the right of the yellow dot. Okay, hit enter. I don't want to guess, so hit enter again. And there it is. You'll notice it's kind of yucky. So the equation in vertex form would be y equals, this is my a value, so -1.75. And then this is just gets gross. So here we go. So this is x minus 4.07 squared plus 8.51. I'm pretty sure on the test, as long as you can get it right here, you're good to go. All right, on these here, this is just a math review. So on these, you just need to do the box. So you have 2x minus 3, and you have 5x plus 2. So if you just start multiplying, so that's 10x squared, negative 15x, you got 4x, and then you have negative 6. And then I just need to start combining everything. So I can't do anything with the 10x squared. I can combine these, though, and that gives me negative 11x minus 6. Now this one says, what two numbers have a product? Oh, sorry, that's your final answer. So this one says, this one has a product of negative 60 and the sum of negative 11. So I'm actually going to start listing all the factors of 60. So 2 and 30, and I can do this thing called half and double. So if I double this, I can half that. But you don't want to do decimals, so you kind of have to, sort of figure it out. You also got 5 and 12. I've got 6 and 10. I think that's about it. All right, now I need to figure out which one can be manipulated to get an 11. I know that 15 minus 4 is 11, so that's it. But I also know that's a negative 11, so I have to have a negative 15. So the two numbers would be negative 15 and 4. All right, now this one you're simplifying, so I'm going to break it down. So I see 2 and 54, and then I see 9 and 6, and then I see 3 and 3, and then I see 2 and 3. Now remember, the idea here is to get pairs. So I see a pair here, okay, and I also see a pair here, and I got two pairs. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18, times 2 is 36. So that's going to be, square root of 36 is 6, and then what's left over is this right here, and that goes there. All right, well, the bell rang, class is about to start. Let me know if you need any help on this. Make sure you ask for help over the weekend, okay? Ask me for help. All right, y'all have a good weekend.